Hello and welcome to week 19 of the FUT Weekly podcast. This is a gameplay podcast on the main feed because, well, Team of the Year hasn't really quite got into full swing, so we'll be talking about it on the main feed next week. And on this podcast, we still have plenty of Team of the Year things to talk about, actually, because we've got a few player reviews, things like that, and I'll introduce, as I often do, James. How's the gameplay been for you of late?
It's been okay, Ben. I think I feel less confident in my 4-3-3 that I've been running lately, which is a bit of a bummer because it's generally like a really fun formation. I don't know so much if it's just me not maybe having played as much FIFA lately as I had before, because for some of the folks in my Discord, it's still working a treat. So, I think I've been slow to adjust to the patch.
Yeah, there has been a bit of a difference. We talked about it on last week's podcast, but our next guest, we have top 2 NA player 𝗏𝘬𝗏𝘀. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My first weekend league since I think sometime during the World Cup, so it had been a little while. Running a 4-3-2-1 that has worked really well for me, and I know some people in the Discord have been trying it as well. So, looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that very shortly. He was also running a 4-3-3 type formation, actually, when we last spoke. Our next guest, it is eWorld Cup commentator and friend of the podcast, Richard Buckley. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, as always, Ben. Looking forward to chatting all things FIFA 23 and how we're finding the game recently.
Well, yeah, and actually after doing the supporter content pod this week, I'm interested to know from you, as we get into our reviews, how you've been finding that Team of the Year icon Pirlo that you very fortunately packed.
I've been really enjoying him. He feels like a fun player to use. I've probably played, I would say maybe 17, 18 games. He played the majority of Weekend League for me. And, passing on the ball and shooting feels elite, just as it should be as well. I think the only negative, which I sort of expected from him, is when you're coming up against those bigger players, 𝘵𝘗𝘗𝘁𝗍𝘗. I see a lot more 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘗 as well. Anyone who sort of got the physical battle over him, he does sort of get dominated in the middle of the pitch. But one thing I think that he's got going for him, his interceptions, it seems to be, in this FIFA, when I'm not controlling him, he's just always in the right place at the right time. Just sort of patrolling that central midfield area. I've been playing him with a shadow because I didn't know if he would be too slow, and he doesn't need the passing or the dribbling. With a shadow, I think he gets over 90 interceptions. Which would lead me to believe why he is so good sort of in that area. He gets the pace boost, which is huge for him. And one thing, I've been pairing him in a midfield alongside Zidane. The biggest difference that I found, Pirlo doesn't need to come off. Zidane, I'm pulling off 70, 75 minutes because of the, I think, 80, 79 stamina, whatever the mid Zidane has. Pirlo can go throughout the game, in champs, into extra time. He's very, very reliable in that aspect. So I think he will continue to come down his price. Fortunate enough to pack him untradeable, so he's going to be playing a lot of games for me. But I think for sort of 500 to 600k in that ballpark, I think you're looking at a very, very competent central defensive midfielder.
Yeah, and actually plus 10 stamina, which is, they're doing the right upgrades on a lot of these Team of the Year icons and making them helpful in certain areas, making them better in certain areas, which is really good to see. And I actually think you were saying to me that you know of a few pros that have really been enjoying this Sergio Ramos Flashback, which it wasn't a complete surprise, but he's not exactly the fastest 83 pace. What I did notice is he has 90 acceleration and 77 sprint speed, and he's lengthy, which is something you just don't see on other centre-backs. I mean, on many players at all, to be honest. So, yeah, is that true that people have actually been enjoying him a lot?
Yeah, the pace split, I think, is huge for him. Acceleration over sprint speed. I know a lot of pros are big fans of him. They're currently in sort of the rivals grind, trying to get to the 1,000 skill mark for the European region at least. And whenever I've seen people using him, I'm 2 squads down myself, so he will be coming to the team. So I'll be able to give my own personal experience of him sometime soon. But he just looks so aggressive when he is getting in front of attackers sort of nipping the ball off of their feet, he looks, and when I've played against him, it's just so quick. He gets back so fast. High reactions, as you would expect for a Sergio Ramos item. Doesn't really need any defensive or physical stats, so you can be a little bit creative, I think, with the chemistry styles as well.
Nice. Yeah, he looks really good. I think I'm always reluctant to go for a centre-back who's got pace that low, and you have to spend quite a bit to get him. But as you say, with that pace split, with the length, maybe that is kind of a different prospect. Hugh, going back to the game, anyone you've been using and found good?
Yeah, I've had basically an almost entirely new team, actually. So I've been holding my coins all cycle, basically just waiting for team of the year. And now I figured, I might as well spend them and, enjoy the coins, while there's lots going on. So right now I've got Centurion 𝘱𝑒𝘠. He's kind of sometimes good, sometimes bad, kind of typical keeper. Moments Cuadrado, Phenoms Koundé, Ones to Watch, Rudiger, Gold 𝘬𝘁𝘀𝘁 for now, hopefully getting the team of the year. Then World Cup Vieira, wild card Cruz. I did the 𝘵𝑀aria SBC, the team of the tournament, and then just I think yesterday or the day before I did the hero pick and got World Cup 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘁. So welcoming the everyone's favorite opponent to face. It was one of those players where I never would have bought him, but now that I've got him untradeable, kind of might as well. Yeah, he's got 105 pace. Only he and 𝗵𝗽𝗍 feel at that level of speed.
A quick question on 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀, because I'm still, to be fair, I think this is the one real issue with the 3-5-2 I've been playing, which again got me 16 wins, which is really good for a 3 at the back, right? Considering I think that's the first time this cycle I've got 16 wins 2 weekends in a row. But the biggest issue for me is 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘐 on the right side of the defense in the back 3, basically getting burned constantly by 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀. And 𝘭𝘪𝘬's not slow. Yes, he's not max pace. Carlos Alberto, if he's on Carlos Alberto's side, and sometimes I've swapped Carlos Alberto over, does deal with him better. But even then it can be a struggle. So people who defend him well, what are they actually doing?
It's not necessarily anything you do defensively. I guess it's kind of similar to what you do against an 𝗵𝗽𝗍, where you try to, back off a bit and think of the angle to goal, try to cut them off rather than just running right behind them because you're never going to catch up. I think mostly what I see that people do wrong is they try to play 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 too central because he kind of needs the space to turn and start running. His dribbling's good, but 87 reactions, 87 balance, it could be better. Whereas if he's on the wing and he's running full speed onto a through ball, he's just gone. But I feel if he's in the middle, you can try to close him down before he turns and then kind of get onto him. So he's someone I think he's best when you play the ball to him when he's already moving rather than, passing it to him and having him turn and then start running.
Yeah. The only time that I get scared of 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 is when I see someone playing him on the left side. I'm just
that's where he's catching me.
Gosh, this is going to be miserable. Because he's when I played this guy and I played 4 games a week in league, maybe not many. And one of the games, the guy was playing, I think it was a 4-3-2-1 with 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 as left forward and 𝗵𝗽𝗍 as right forward. And I was just I know exactly what I'm in for. Exactly what I'm in for. And still managed to squeak it out. But it's just, what is the old expression? Squeaky bum time, or, whatever, however it goes. And you just sort of hoping you don't get the FIFA junk.
Yeah. But I guess I should also say then the biggest addition, not even 𝗷𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀, was I bought on, I think, Friday, team of the year Benzema. So really been enjoying him. He's fantastic, exactly as good as you would think with the stats. I think 2 million coins right now, definitely worth it, in my opinion. He's just so good at everything. The only thing I would say he's not great at is he's not going to break away from people like someone like an 𝗵𝗽𝗍 would, but shooting is so reliable. Passing's great. He's great on the ball with an engine, good strength as well. Really good for any of those kind of one striker formations. So a 4-3-3, a false 9, a 4-3-2-1 as that middle player, because he has the 5-star weak foot that he can do anything you need him to do on either side. And especially best when you have center mids or wingers kind of running off of him versus, if he was in a 4-4-2 and he just kind of stood up there and just received the ball and shot or ran in behind, I don't think he'd be quite as good.
Yeah, that makes sense. What chemistry style did you put on him? Because he's a bit of a weird one, as a lot of team of the year players are for chemistry, right? Because his shooting doesn't need boosting, passing probably doesn't either, right?
Yeah, I went for engine just because it gets the agility and balance up, which are both under 90, gets the dribbling to 99, and also helps a bit with the passing just because of like his long passing and curve aren't quite as good. So like if you're like on a counter and you play it into him and he turns and goes to play like a through ball, it kind of helps. But mostly just getting the pace to mid 90s and the agility and balance into the 90s as well.
Well, good to have our first Team of the Year review proper, I guess. I'm sure there'll be a few more to come. We should move on to this question actually from 𝗬𝗃𝗀𝗁, and he's asking about inverting wingers because the move away from 𝗪𝗏𝗧 is, I guess, a bit of a meta, or certainly a meta in some cases previously. Is it now worth playing your wingers on the opposite side? So basically having players on their weak side rather than on their strong side, so you can then cut inside. And what are those on the pod doing? Richard, should we start with you? And actually, you're still playing that 4-5-1 you were playing last time you were on the podcast.
I've been trying. I really tried persisting with the 4-5-1, but I just kept on getting blitzed by 4-3-2-1. So I've been playing a little bit of the 4-2-3-1, and when I am in that particular formation, I was using the end of an 𝗵𝗃𝗍𝗏 or other sort of players of that ilk. I was using him on the right, so inverted technically, but then 𝗵𝗏𝗏 on the left. So one to cut in and then one to 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝘀.
That makes sense, yeah.
I think with 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏, I feel more comfortable doing the skill moves on the left foot on the left side of the pitch. It sounds weird, but it makes sense when I'm playing.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, yeah. I've always found that easier.
Rather than trying to then invert it and then invert it again when he's cutting in off the right-hand side, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's easier to bait people, isn't it? Because they think you're going to go wide because you're strong.
Sometimes just hit the byline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it allows you a bit more unpredictability. So yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I think it's all personal preference. Like if you're really good on the green and you're comfortable green timing, you can still green time 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏s and they still will fly in. But I think getting to the byline as well, I find is much better when I'm, say, attacking with 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 down the left, and I know that then I'm passing it back on his left foot instead of passing it back on a weak foot or something like that. So I've been sticking with the inverted as of right now, unless I know someone's got a deadly finesse, like I'm playing a Lionel Messi and I want him off the right to cut in.
Yeah. Sorry, you said sticking with the inverted, but you mean...
Sticking with the traditional left on the left. Yeah,
exactly. And I was going to ask you, actually, you mentioned Bale. I guess people will probably do him anyway because he's so cheap, but how have you been finding him?
I tried him down the middle as my central striker for a little while. Didn't find him to have that much success.
And how much chemistry, I should say, actually, that's probably worth asking.
So I've got him on right now 1.
Right,
so
okay, yeah.
I think it's Cooper, the Welsh manager. But as soon as I've put him as that right forward in the 4-3-2-1, I found I've had a lot more success with him. He is a bully to a lot of fullbacks. If you can get across the back post, he will win 99% of headers. And I've just found him, his pace, he feels so fast. You were talking about Alawairan and that 𝗵𝗵𝗽𝗍𝗏 pace. I don't think it's to that extent, but I would say it's sort of one tier down. He's so fast at getting away, but with the strength that he's got, he can hold people off as well. So I think for the price, he's up there as one of the best value SBCs that we're probably going to get all year. And even if you want to just bring him as a sub, or you want a really good attacking left back in a 4-3-2-1, and you just want to have a bit of fun, I think he is a must-do.
Yeah, no, he looks really good. Let's move on back to the question that we were covering before, which was about having your wide players inverted or not. 𝗬𝗃𝗀𝗁, what are you tending to go with at the moment? I guess that's the 4-3-3, isn't it?
I would prefer have right-footed player on the right, but right now I'm playing World Cup 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗀 as my right wing, but he's on free roam, so he sort of is like right side-ish. He sort of does what he wants.
So wait, sorry, 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 is playing as a right wing?
He is playing as a right wing because I have 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀, and 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 needs to play on the left.
But are you playing 𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 on the left because he's more of a passer than a shooter? Is that why?
I guess I'm playing 𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 on the left because I prefer how he runs down the wing. In my tactics, that player is less likely to get inside the box and act as a striker.
Sure.
So I want him to play like more of an outside midfielder. And he just has to play along the touchline a lot more than the other-sided player does. And because of that, I want him to be comfortable, or I want to feel like comfortable with his foot out wide. That makes sense?
That does make sense. I mean, we'll move on to you then. What are you tending to prefer in terms of that difference between the two? I mean, you're playing the 4-3-2-1, aren't you? So it depends a little bit on kind of what the setup is there.
Yeah, I've also been running with like the strong foot on the same side. So I have 𝘬𝘰𝘀𝘀 right forward and 𝘵𝘃𝘀𝘀 left forward. So
you did 𝘬𝘰𝘀𝘀?
No, I packed his base before I took my break.
All right. All right.
No, base 𝘬𝘰𝘀𝘀.
I don't know about you, but he is the most common player that I come up against in the Elite Division.
The mid one?
Yeah, the one that was the SBC.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. Because he feels like you're playing a little pro clubs player. It's just like...
That's so true. Anyway, Hugh, yeah, so you're saying you're playing strong on strong side, basically. Any particular reason for that? Just you prefer to get to the byline, or you prefer to shoot outside, or
Yeah, it just gives you those options. Like you can either go to the touchline to square it, or you can do the power shot across goal. I've really been working on green timing more shots lately, and a green timed power shot across goal from the right angle works really well. I think especially in a 4-3-2-1 because they're a little more narrow, whereas if they were wider, like a 4-3-3, it might be a better angle for finesse shots. I just feel like overall finesse shots just aren't good this year. Every time I do one, I wish I didn't. So I feel like it kind of helps me not do them by having the players that way.
𝘱𝑒𝑙𝑎s are still better than finesse shots.
I feel like finesse shots, if your player, so 𝘵𝘀𝑀aria is really good at them. I was like, he must have finesse shot, and he actually doesn't, but he does have 97 curve. So I'm guessing that's probably a factor, right? And he scored quite a few for me, but still, I don't think they're especially good. The reason why I would have the strong-footed player on the strong side is actually for the low drivens across goal, right? I find them so consistent as long as the keeper doesn't move. If the keeper does move, you've got a bit more time to kind of continue running a little bit and then put it near post. So for me, yeah, I'm strong on the strong side just because low drivens are so good, in my opinion. Just, tap it and it will go across goal and go in a lot of the time. So yeah, pretty easy, straightforward for me. And again, you can 𝘱𝑒𝑙𝑎 if you want to, if you can time it and cut in, then you can go for that. And it does work. Let's move on to this question. More of a, I guess, technical question. I should say, actually, there were lots of good questions this week. One of those ones where we didn't have many, so I was like, we don't have many questions then. Loads of people sent questions, and now we have a lot. No doubt they'll come in future weeks if we don't cover them this week. So NJ Renegade says, I know it was almost said as a joke by one of the guests. He says, Taz, I think it was actually Ivan who was talking about this. They talked on the pod about the super cancel ability with all bumpers and triggers. It's been super helpful for me not having my players touch balls before they go out for corners, etc. Are there any other random controls that people might find helpful that they don't see used very often? And yeah, I don't think the super cancel thing was necessarily actually a joke from Ivan. He was saying it is pretty helpful if you want to stop your player doing something that you don't want them to do. And yeah, it is a useful thing to pick up. I think, 𝗫𝘱, you use it, don't you? I think you've talked about it before.
I use it all the time because I accidentally do things, and I need to adjust because, maybe I made a bad choice here or there. I use the one thing I don't see people use that's like kind of a useful feature is you hit right trigger with your goalkeeper and call your defenders into the box. It's like the defenders start in the box on a goal kick. They start in the box by default if you're playing slow build-up. But if you're not playing slow build-up, you can just hit right trigger and call them into the box. And if you like to play out from the back, that means, or you're not playing that betting game of, are they going to pick the right player that I'm going to try to rush the ground pass out to?
I think you can also send the team up the pitch, can't you, with the other side?
Yeah, you can. I don't know what the control is for that though. But I've seen people use it against me, and it works pretty well.
Yeah. What do people use that for? Is it just to kind of get you further up the pitch if you've got a target man, basically?
It pushes your striker up against their back line, and if you have a big striker, you can it works really well.
You can also pass it while the team is moving up the field. I mean, the timing's a little tricky, but say they're playing narrow. And you press it to push your team up, and your fullback's just unmarked moving up the pitch.
What's the control, Hugh?
To move them up would be the left bumper, LB or L1, and call them short would be right bumper or R1.
Yeah, that's a good tip actually. What about you, Richard? Any particular buttons that people don't use that much?
I've got one, and it's a little bit of a pro club's hack. Like, if you're ever in the position where you dink the ball into the middle of the pitch, say from a goal kick, and it's good if you need a late minute goal. You've got the goal kick, you dink it into Zidane, for example. Instead of bringing the ball down or trying to head the ball normally, if you do your header with L1 and triangle, you will get a crazy animation where your player will just sort of flick the ball with his head as a over the top through ball. And it's something that is used a lot, but especially when I used to play 11-man pro clubs quite a lot, competitive, everyone would always just target man and then try and win from a throw-in, especially try and win the header. You can almost do it full power and the ball will it'll fly. But yeah, that's like something that I don't really see other people doing a lot. That's one that does give me quite a bit of success.
You could do that on like at the end of the game as well. If you're like kicking the ball up to clear it from your keeper and you have a striker up there and you happen to have
just
another guy
into the corner.
Yeah, just exactly. And it works pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good one. And actually that reminds me, one of the things that I was thinking is good to say. A lot of people will know this, but you can't be offside from a throw-in, and you can control the players that you're throwing it to. You press LB, you control the receiving player, you can run them, say, to the byline, and then receive the throw there. You can make your throw a through ball as well, so that you can run onto it, and then you can cut inside down the byline. Works really well and surprises people. With
the more players getting more traits, like Trent, for example, has got giant throw, so you can just launch the ball. Like, especially if you're in your own half and you don't really have a throw on, and the marking the player as well, you can just launch it down the line. Yeah,
giant throw is really giant. I think people...
Yeah, it is.
Because it's so rare, and players are getting this trait in game now, as we talked about before, so look out for it. The flick-ons from it, I think, are a good thing to point out. So yeah, good tip there. The other thing that I use a bit, which I really don't see many people talking about at all, is the contain button. It was something that people used a lot in the past. It used to be really overpowered. The way you do it is hold X on PlayStation or A on Xbox, and it will kind of maintain a distance from the attacking player. It used to be really strong because that distance was quite tight and you couldn't really shake off the containing player as the attacking player, and it made it really hard to do skill moves, things like that. That's not really the case anymore. You can just burn past someone if they're holding the contain button. But if someone's being very slippery and moving side to side a lot, it can be really helpful just to kind of steady yourself and get a good distance from the player, take up a good position, and then kind of jockey from there. And it's not exactly like amazing. It's not overpowered. It's not something that I'd say like it's a must use. But I think just for kind of resetting your defense, for taking up a good position, and for players who maybe aren't so competent defending players doing a lot of skill moves, it can just help, I think. And it's something that I would recommend. But yeah, we're going to be moving on in just a second to the 4-3-2-1, some chat about where to spend your coins and whether to. But for now, we need to unfortunately say goodbye to you, Richard. You've got to go pack some more Team of the Year icons probably, or something like that.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully I'll be back this time next week with a nice haul of blues. But as always, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's been great.
Best of luck to everyone out there in your Team of the Year packs.
Indeed. And on that, we'll be taking a break and be back in a moment. Hello, listeners. It's Team of the Year, but it's also the end and the last chance to enter that 36,000 FIFA point giveaway over on Patreon. So there really, really is no better time to join up and become a supporter than now. The FIFA points will be delivered before the end of Team of the Year, worth saying that. So perhaps go over there, check it out, see what you think, potentially support the podcast, keep it going, get an extra podcast every week. It's ad-free, it's early, and yeah, there's loads of other stuff to enjoy. Not just the giveaway, not just bonus podcasts, and it's kept the podcast going. It means we can do the podcast, which is fantastic. This has been a bit of a ramble of a break, but hopefully I've conveyed the point. Perhaps you're now interested. It would be great if you were. You can head over to bit.ly/Xmas23 points. That's bit.ly/Xmas23 points. Link in the description, or you can search support for weekly. Oh, and if you're on YouTube, another plug, do like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube-y things. It really helps out. Let's get back into the pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. Going to start with this question from Davis Matek about whether elite division / pro players really noticed a difference using truly top tier CBs, 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦, World Cup 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦, etc. versus 200k-ish substitutes like 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 or the like. And while that's maybe quite specific, it makes a lot of sense now to talk about it with Team of the Year happening currently and whether it's worth paying so much for these players, and especially when certain stat differences are sometimes not that big, but that doesn't seem to be reflected in the price. You think of players like 𝘵𝗵𝗽, where it's like +1s and 2s, and yet the player is 1 million coins more, and that's often down to rarity, to be honest, isn't it? But anyway, in terms of centre-backs, it is quite a good place to start because there are clearer tiers, I think, between centre-backs, and there's sort of an acceptance of what makes a good centre-back, which there isn't always in other positions. Actually, I know, Hugh, you had to change your centre-backs coming back. You bought some which were just basically too cheap and too far behind the curve. So it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this, and we can broaden it out a bit later.
Yeah, so I went from kind of the bottom tier to the middle tier. So I went from like gold Rudiger and like team of the tournament 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘦 to ones to watch Rudiger and Phenoms Koundé. So I definitely think that I noticed an improvement. I think it's kind of similar with defenders as it is for any other position, that like you pay an extra premium to get the very best. So like those players might not be 1 million coins better than the next step down, but there's not really much in between there to do instead. So I'd say go with like that middle tier unless you feel like you're really struggling. Then maybe buy like one of the premier ones. But again, like I said, with like attackers, like if you upgrade from like a base version of an icon to the prime version, say like 𝘵𝘵𝘆𝑒𝑢𝑠𝑒𝑖𝑏𝑖𝑜, that might be like 1 million coins more, but like he's not significantly better, but you pay the premium to get the best versions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Japes, who have you used?
I use World Cup Blanc, 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘀𝘀, Kohler. I will throw in World Cup Vieira in there because I think he's actually rather good as a center back, which pains me.
Well, I guess then you haven't used sort of 𝘭𝘪𝘀 and 𝑉𝐵𝑖𝑙_van_Dijk?
I just won't pay for it. Like I don't have the luxury of having that many coins, and if I'm going to pay for an elite skill player, whether I win or lose is going to matter more if I have an elite player in a different position than center back.
Yeah.
Like if you,
that's fair.
I used to talk about this concept in like Path to Power, but if you have 1 million coins and you say, irrespective of like specific players, where are you going to put those 1 million coins like positionally to give yourself the best chance to win? Striker is going to be the number one spot that, at least for me, that I like put the coins. And like then it's probably midfielders and then maybe center backs.
But also I feel like there's real diminishing returns, particularly on centre backs, I would say, to sort of exaggerate that. Like,
yeah, that's true.
The top level of centre back, they're just so much more expensive than the tier below, which I guess is the kind of the question, isn't it? Like, I don't think your value gained at that top end is as good as in other positions.
Yeah, I'd say that's, well, I don't know. When you look at 𝘵𝗵𝗽 being priced at like 8 million coins for his Team of the Year one, like,
yeah, okay,
it's like,
maybe we ignore those players that are just out recently, but,
well,
but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Even still, you take like your R9s, right? And whatever he's priced at the moment. Like,
I guess what I'm kind of comparing is like 𝘭𝘪𝘀, who's 1.5 million, the World Cup version. And I mean, even 𝘭𝘪𝘀's 89 version is 600k. And really, I mean, there's a league change, but it's just like +1s or something.
They're worth that much to some people who need to have the absolute best. But I think, I don't mean to sound negative, but people worry too much about the quality of their team. Like once it's at a certain good level, when we talked about the diminishing returns, like if I had like a 1 million coin team versus a 2 million coin team, I don't think my weekend league results would be like massively different. If we had like a 10 million coin team, then they're like, yeah, sure. But like, as long as you're not using like garbage defenders, like I don't think it's going to be like too huge of a jump. Like don't use fodder players, but you don't need those like 1 million+ coin players to like be good.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times these like super elite players, maybe where it's like a hero or something like that, like the pros, not only are they paying a premium because they think they're good, they fit within what might be like a requirement or their easy chemistry options. Like Tomori that you're talking about is not an easy chemistry option at all.
Yeah.
Mind you, AC Milan has like a full team of special cards now, so maybe that's not entirely fair. But Lucio, to get him into the team is super, super easy. That's where like Laurent Blanc to me is like maybe a better comparison. I don't know. I take pride in like having center backs that I really like in my team. But for most people, your baseline level of enjoyment in FIFA is going to be impacted less by your center backs than it would be by an attacker.
Yeah.
Like scoring goals is more fun than not conceding goals.
Well, no, it's true. I think also one important point to make on attackers, though, is that it's also that variety in attack, the fun that you can have in the game, in my opinion, is through attacking play. The enjoyment of that, for me, comes from using different attackers, seeing what they offer, trying different things. And I think one of the reasons when people are often like, oh, how do you play the game throughout the cycle so consistently? And it is because I'm changing my attackers quite a bit. And if I have the same attackers for a while, I don't enjoy the game. That's just a fact.
But Ben, this is also why when we look at like SBCs, it's like, yeah, I'll do a center back SBC. Like if he sits in my team, like that's totally cool. But like your attackers, it's like, do I really want that untradeable attacker? Like how long is he going to stay in my team when there's a shiny new object I can score goals with coming out soon?
Completely. That's exactly the point. I totally agree. And talking of attacking players, I think you've squeezed maybe 3 or 4 into your 4-3-2-1. It is something that has been popular, the 4-3-2-1 throughout the cycle, the idea of bringing an attacker back into the midfield. And I believe that's what you're doing here, Hugh, as well. And yeah, tell us about it. Tell us about the 4-3-2-1. You've obviously had a lot of success with it, got your rank 1, even though you just come back to the game. Do you want to take us through what it's like?
Yeah, so for the main tactic that I'm using, it's press after possession loss with 45 width and 75 depth, really just to make it more aggressive. If you are someone that doesn't like to press quite as much, I'm sure it should be fine if you drop it down a bit. Then for attack, I'm using balanced build-up with forward runs, 35 width, and 6 players in the box. And then corners and free kicks, kind of do whatever you want. This is kind of the main version where, for me, it's kind of like the left side is a bit more attacking, and you'll see what I mean with the instructions. But you can flip this as long as you flip all of the wide players. So the fullbacks, the wide center mids, and the wide forwards would all have to be flipped. So I have the keeper on comes for crosses and sweeper keeper. Right back is on join the attack and overlap, while the left back is stay back and inverted. The center mid is like the ball winner, so stay back, stay on edge, cover center. Right center mid is just stay on edge of the box, still on cover wing. So that's just kind of like, that's where I played wild card. Toni Kroos just kind of floats around, makes passes, things like that. The left center mid is on get forward, get into the box, and drift wide. This is where I use 𝘵𝑺. So really functions as a fourth attacker, and he will make runs beyond the left forward, who is on stay forward and false 9. So that left forward kind of drops in while the left center mid goes forward. This is something I've kind of been playing around with, maybe changing just for myself because I have that 𝘵𝑗℉𝘂 now. He's not like a great false 9. I'd rather have him running in behind, but the false 9 is how I had it originally. The right forward is on get in behind and come back. So that's where I'll have like 𝘵𝑺 playing as like a left mid in defense and Jairzinho's playing as a right mid. So it's like a 4-4-2 defensively. That's what I'll use against like a 4-4-2, 4-2-2-2, 4-2-3-1, where they don't have a huge midfield presence. Whereas if someone's playing 4-3-2-1 or maybe narrow, I will switch the right forward to also stay forward. So that way the left center mid defends more narrow as like a 3 rather than a 4. So I just have these 2 variations that I can switch between. Nothing else changes. It's just, that one thing. On the tactic I put in the Discord, I did have the right forward on stay central, but I've actually taken it off just because I feel like it's a little better when they can vary the runs like more inside or outside. And then the striker is just on stay forward and nothing else.
Okay. That's interesting. So now you have Alawairan. This is something that I guess people may encounter themselves when they're trying to build for this formation. Would you say it would be better actually to invert the team so that he's playing that kind of wide, getting behind attacking role on the left side instead? Do you have players that could make that work? You could switch the tactic from left to right if you like.
That's a tricky part because team of the tournament, 𝘵𝑺 is like the perfect attacking left center mid, and I don't think he'd be quite as good on the right side. And then my right back is 𝘠𝑚oments_Cuadrado, who I'm not sure would be as good at staying back. So it's something I could maybe do. But basically what I've been doing is if I leave 𝘵𝘬𝘬𝘀 on the false 9 instruction, he can kind of help to like link play as I'm progressing forward, and then I can just manually trigger a run for him or do like an LB pass, so like pass and move, and then he like spins in behind. So I still get him involved in that way, but I think he'd probably be best for just his results if he was just on get him behind. So I guess I'll see.
So we talked about this formation quite a bit over the course of the cycle. The fact that the fullback comes forward, that's something that works really well this cycle. And the way that it defends in a 4 is super effective. And I guess this is a probably more aggressive version than we've seen mentioned on the podcast in the past. So that's good. The thing I was going to say though, and something that I've been thinking about over the course of the cycle a lot, is what's actually the best counter to the 4-3-2-1? Like, what do you have most trouble against?
I think it's tough because I think the way I play it with a fullback going forward, if someone were to play, say, 4-2-2-2, or maybe even like a 4-3-3-4 with all their attacking players on stay forward, then I can be caught out with like a 4v3. Usually if that happens, I'll just pause and put the right back on like balanced or stay back, and that's usually fine. If someone else is playing 4-3-2-1, I usually just switch the right forward to stay forward, so I'm playing a more traditional 4-3-2-1. I think overall, if you match someone's formation, assuming you're familiar with it, that it'll benefit the better player. So if I think, this guy is not necessarily better than me, but the formations just aren't aligning well, I'll just match it, and then it's usually fine. If it feels like it's someone who's really difficult, I might try just trying different tactics, even like a 3-5-2 or something like that. Sometimes just trying something different that they're not used to seeing is helpful.
Nice. Japes, any particular, do you think you might try it yourself, or are you too low to go 4-3-2-1 meta?
I probably have a good group of players that would maybe work well with that type of setup.
Actually, what players do you have? Maybe you can recommend where you'd play them, and then that might help listeners if they're thinking of trying it.
Yeah, so my 3 attackers are 𝘬𝘬𝘀𝘁, World Cup 𝘬𝘬𝘀, World Cup 𝘬𝘬𝘀, and World Cup 𝘬𝘃𝗃. As like a false 9, I think 𝘬𝘃𝗃 would probably work pretty well because his passing is pretty good too. My midfield 3 are Schweinsteiger, World Cup 𝘬𝘃, and Winter Wildcards 𝘏𝑚𝑖c. And then my back line is Baby Roberto Carlos, World Cup Blanc, 𝘵𝘃𝗍𝗵𝗹 𝘵𝘚𝑖, and Vieira. And the 𝘵𝘃𝗍𝗵𝗹 𝘵𝑚𝗍 is my right back.
That sounds pretty well suited, actually. It could be.
Yeah, for like if you flipped it, I think like the right back stays back, the left back goes forward.
Yep.
Right center mid could maybe be Schweinsteiger.
I use Schweinsteiger as my holding mid usually. And then I like kind of box to box, and 𝘬𝗃 as my get forward.
So then 𝘬𝗃 get forward from right center mid, right forward, I guess, would be then 𝘬𝘃𝗃 is the kind of false 9, Völler central, and 𝑘ühl on the left side who comes back and then also can go forward on his strong foot.
Yeah, I'll give some new tactics a shot here. You might have talked me into it. Just a little fun, a little something different. Although those tactics, like I don't have drift wide. Maybe I need to add that instruction. My 4-3-3, because I have 𝘬𝘃𝗃 on
I was gonna say
on free roam. He drops into the midfield all the time, and 𝘬𝗃 is already on get forward. So they already interchange all the time, and my right back is on stay back. So it's not, I just don't have come back on my left mid, but it's not super dissimilar. And since I am playing on 1 width, no, maybe I'm on 10 now, 10 width, it probably plays 4-3-2-1-ish.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the drift wide. I feel like it helps the center mid going forward and the forward drifting back to not be on top of each other.
Yeah.
Like the center mid, as they go forward, they go a little bit around. So you can play into the feet of the forward coming back, and they can turn and play it to the other player rather than them running straight into each other and kind of getting in the way.
Yeah. Hugh posted in the bank, because I'm not going to remember it all off the top of my head.
It is in the bank actually already.
Is it really?
It is, yeah.
Wow.
Incredible efficiency there from Hugh. And if you're a gold or above supporter, then go check it out. And if you're having trouble accessing the Discord, you can go to bit.ly/pod Discord help. So that's bit.ly/pod Discord help. Otherwise, do look out for it on Twitter at FUT Weekly Pod. Still need to put the 352 up there. But yeah, that's where we wrap up this pod. So thank you very much to Hugh, first of all. Good to have you back on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to be back and enjoying FIFA, Team of the Year, lots going on. I'm sure lots more to come.
Yeah, and 𝗏𝗡s, thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure as always.
It's been great. And that does then wrap us up. Obviously, a reminder, 36,000 FIFA point giveaway over on Patreon, bit.ly/Xmas, 23 points. It'll be done in time for Team of the Year. Final chance to enter. There is also a link in the description of this podcast. Right, that does wrap us up. Thank you very much again to the guests we've had, but also to you listeners out there listening along, to the supporters who are keeping this podcast going, including those icon patrons: Dave B, Hugh J, Coach Vass, DJ FIFA Player, Alan G, Alistair, Anthony R, Dominic P, Rob P, Jeff B, Stephen F, Tom B, Damon H, David S, Nick Jack M, Eric T, Neil P, Adam G, Dan W, Waterman, Jake G, Roger D, Springford, Alec, Bracco, Nishant, Harry P, Alex M, Lee A, Brendan W, Andrew C, Joe W, Timothy J, Dylan, Adam R, Sam K, Graham W, Andy, Ads H2K, and Brian V. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. FIFA's a bit like life really. It has its many ups and its many downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.